Ladies and gentlemen, if you would not mind taking your seats, please, so that we may get started. Please take your seats. Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start now the form, continue our form rather, and start with our candidates for village president. We have two candidates for village president, Mr. JeRome Brown and Mr. John Ostenburg. Since we have a candidate who is not an incumbent or sitting office holder, I will address the candidates by the title of Mr. Right, we'll start first with a 2-minute opening statement by Mr. JeRome Brown.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank Park Forest Library for this opportunity and the non-partisan committee for its participation, and welcome to all the guests. I am JeRome Brown. 3 years ago, I married my bride, established a home base in Park Forest, and I began to service in the community immediately. I became a booster parent at Rich East High School. I became the president of Toastmasters and a programmer for the Rotary Club. The following year, my family was blessed, which everybody knows I always speak about this guy. My family was blessed with my son, JeRome Brown, and you probably see him running around there now. I love my life. I am a youth advocate by profession and on a volunteer basis. I am also a motivational speaker. Soon I will publish my book entitled After the Tassel, geared towards students. My background in banking, insurance, restaurants, running marinas, and politics have prepared me for creating, networking, negotiating, building businesses, growing businesses, and giving life to dead businesses. Meeting the people in Park Forest, I come to understand that the needs in Park Forest are where my strength lies. I stand by my promise to serve the people of the village of Park Forest as a whole. I want to be clear, no more division. Your concerns are my concerns. Talking with the people of Park Forest door to door, you motivated me to run for the village president of Park Forest. And by saying that motivation, when we were doing petitions, when people saying that I haven't been here long enough, the incumbent had 234 signatures, while the new guy had over 1,600 signatures. So I think I know a little bit about Park Forest and what the people represent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Ostenburg.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon. Thank you to the Nonpartisan Committee and to the Friends of the Library for sponsoring this forum. When I became village president back in 1999, I had several goals. One of which was, of course, to address the high taxation that we had in the village. Keeping in mind, though, that only 30% of your tax bill comes to the village, and that's all we have responsibility for. But in the 5 years prior to my election, our average increase in taxes was about 10% per year for the village portion. One of my goals was to reduce that. We have reduced that to an average of less than 4% per year. Now, 4% per year comes out at about 1% of the overall taxation, and that pretty much accounts for inflation, things of that sort. We did that through a whole series of things, one of which was to go out and to seek grants, outside funding. We've received over $20 million in federal funding. County and state funding has added about another $4 million to that. We have about $7 million that came in from the Canadian National Settlement, some of which will go for sound mitigation, but the rest will go for village improvements. That's another one of the goals that we tried to address, keep costs down. Another goal that I had that was very important was housing in our village. One of the very first things we did was to get a grant from former Senator Debbie Halverson to make improvements in individuals' homes. And there were several hundred residents of the village who were able to put in new storm doors and new storm windows as a result of that grant. In addition to that, the rental property in the downtown was a major, major problem. If you go by the north side of the rental property today, what you see are massive improvements. That contributes to the general climate of the village. Economic development was important. We have brought in a number of new businesses that are in the downtown, and we're growing more of them. We don't have a lot of the franchise businesses because they simply demand traffic that we don't have. But we have local businesses that are doing well and that are staying in the community, and that's very important. and we're going to have another one that's going to be there very soon with the food co-op. So I look forward to any questions you may have, and hopefully we'll enlarge on some of the things that I've tried to do over the last 12 years.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have received quite a few questions. The questions will be asked in the order received, and hopefully we'll be able to get to all of them. First question is a question for Mr. Brown. You have spoken a great deal about bringing new businesses to town to reduce taxes. But the problem over the past decade has not been in bringing commercial businesses to town, but in getting enough people to shop locally. How do you plan to address this problem?
First of all, you don't have to just deal with commercial business, but Park Forest in whole needs commercial businesses and the surrounding area. We don't have a sit-down restaurant in Park Forest in the downtown area or on the outskirts of Park Forest. There are also manufacturing businesses that we need to look into. I've been talking to people as far as that own pavement companies. People want to do other major manufacturing companies that would hire people that's at least in the double digits, if not in the triple digits. I'm talking about employing people like 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, 40 people. Right now, Park Forest is not reaching out to that. Meeting after meeting, forum after forum, trustees and mayor said they are pleased with the development of Park Forest, which none is tax-based. They say we could survive on mom and pa shops. I know that those people need to work as well, but what is it doing for the property taxes in Park Forest? As we talk about this forum today, what you all need to really do is listen. Don't judge me by how long I've been here, because you'll hear that several times. But while they're talking about the business that's here, I've been here longer than the businesses that they're saying will stay. And I've been here longer than, I've seen a lot of businesses close since I've been here. The only thing I want to do is not put a Band-Aid on it. I want to repair it and fix it. So when you keep hearing the terms loosely, how long have you been here? Like I said, I've been here since 2008. And if anyone here is ever in harm's way once again, and you call 911 once again, I doubt very seriously if you ask that person on the other receiving end of that phone, how long have you worked for the police station? You'll say, come help me. Thank you.
And Mr. Ostenburg will be given an opportunity to respond if he wishes, a 2-minute response. Mr. Ostenburg?
Thank you, Judge. First of all, let me say that we have a number of businesses that we've added, and they have stayed in the community. Look at Southland Catering, look at CVS, look at every number of things in Industry Park. Champion Manufacturing, which does employ individuals. There's the Walgreens has been here for a long time as a major employer. We also have Gerber Automotive that left the village and came back to the village. Mike Jordan State Farm left the village and came back to the village. There's a number of businesses, and if JeRome, if you don't remember grocery stores and restaurants that have been here and have put a lot of investment, well, maybe that's just because you weren't here at the time that they were here. But they have come to the community, people have put the investment in. Unfortunately, traffic patterns are not good in our community. And so we have to kind of focus on businesses that are niche businesses, that people will come to no matter where they're located. That's been one of the major focuses that we have tried to do. I want to just address this thing about the police department and fire department. Let me tell you something. There is not a fireman or a paramedic or a policeman in the village of Park Forest that's going to come to your door when you call 911 who has not been trained and has experience. That's the way it is. We never send a rookie out by themselves. Every one of them, if they're a policeman, they've been through the academy, they probably have an associate degree or a baccalaureate degree in criminal justice. The paramedics have gone through paramedic training, so you don't have to worry anytime that you're going to get somebody coming into your door as a paramedic or police officer who's inexperienced and who hasn't had training. They've had that training. We won't let them go to the door unless they've had that training.
Oh, sure I do.
1 minute, sir.
Sure. Once again, here goes the misleading. It was a hypothetical situation. I didn't say a police will come to your house ever. I said if you pick up a phone for any anybody who can't understand, if you pick up a phone, do you ask the question, how long have you worked there? That's what the question was. Here, he's saying about the businesses. They keep saying Park Forest have 346 businesses, correct? Here's the business directory. Show me 346 businesses that's in Park Forest. We had a McDonald's. Let's put it all out on the table. We had a McDonald's. How do you run McDonald's out of town? How do you run McDonald's out of town? The biggest franchise in the world, not the state of Illinois, not Park Forest, not the United States, in the world. And you lost that. One more thing. I wasn't here when your business was here downtown. You lost that. So how can you put together a whole entire downtown or rebuild Western or Lincoln Highway?
Thank you. Final rebuttal.
Yes, thank you.
1 minute, sir.
Thank you. First of all, McDonald's left before I became mayor, a long, long time before I became mayor. As a matter of fact, and we replaced it with the Walgreens, which has produced very well for our community and produced sales tax and put people to work. Secondly, I did not lose my business. My wife retired in 2006 after 14 years of us running that business in downtown Park Forest, and many of you enjoyed the time that we were there. We provided not only the good opportunity for people to come and have fellowship and coffee and things of that sort, but they also got good entertainment on Friday and Saturday night. So a lot of people come to me regularly and say how much they miss that. There is the opportunity for business in our community. There's no question about that. But we can't cherry pick the accusations. The fact of the matter is, Burger King closed on Sauk Trail in Richmond Park. That's not saying that Richmond Park doesn't know how to operate or run businesses. It's just a fact of the economy. And sometimes business owners make decisions that they have to move their business or close their business. McDonald's was not anything that I had anything to do with, and I really think that I don't think there's anybody in village government right now that had anything to do with government at the time that McDonald's closed.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to the next question. We're going to move on to the next question. No, sir. This is a question for Mr. Brown. You don't seem to have an understanding of Park Forest's history. Why do you think you can improve things? This is a question for Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown?
Well, elementary thinking, if you drive downtown Park Forest, I think anybody would know that it needs improvement. I think if you drove down Western, I think that you will see a whole entire mall that is closed down. That's across the street from the co-op, it's across the street from Eastgate. They have plenty of people that can shop there. But it also butts up against 3 or 4 other suburbs. You have Lincoln Highway, that we have property there. There was a car dealership that also left. That on the east side and the west side, booming is, business is booming. But of course, those are in 2 other towns. What you will hear tonight, or this afternoon, should I say, you'll continue to hear about what other places are doing or how they're failing. Let's stick with Park Forest for a change. Just one forum, one debate. Let's deal with the mishaps and the bad leadership that is going on in Park Forest. Let's not go outside of Park Forest, and please, let's not go into what we're going to do. If you heard even the trustees when they was here, we got a huge, major $1 billion coming to us. We're going to fix this, we're going to fix that. We have this plan, we have that plan, and you will see it the rest of this conversation. And before long, you'll hear Richard Dent. And on the Richard Dent project, when we had our first debate, which was February 13th, it was told to us that the Richard Dent project, and it's on tape, and Gary, you probably could do that for him. It was said on tape that the Richard Dent project will be here in 2 weeks. Have anybody seen any doors open? Did we have a ribbon cutting project?
Thank you. Mr. Ostenburg, would you like to respond?
Sure. First of all, I'm going to address the Richard Dent thing. What I had said was that within 2 weeks, Mr. Dent was going to be signing an agreement with the village on the property, which he has done. He is doing due diligence on the property right now. They hope to have that completed by August. I think I've even explained that in other forums, but in fact, it did happen within the 2-week period that I had said. Secondly, let's just talk about the businesses in Park Forest that have come here during the time that I've been mayor, because I'm not responsible for before that period. But if you go down Industry Park, you're going to see a number of places that are there that were not there before. You know, the Chicago Tribune facility, for example, that also employs individuals. There's the pallet company that was there, the former Winstrom manufacturing building that we brought in a pallet company that's in that location. There's other facilities that are in that area. The automobile dealerships we've turned into a transit-oriented development working in concert with two other communities, Olympia Fields and Madison. That has been planned. It's now at the point of where developers are being invited in to make presentations. In the downtown, just look at the Southland Caterers. As I mentioned, Mike Jordan Insurance. The Tower Cleaners came to the downtown. We have the movie theater, which we had almost lost the movie theater, and we had to bring it back twice, as a matter of fact, with different operators to get it functioning right now. There's the Shrimp Max that's in the downtown. There's the automotive supply company that's in the downtown. There's the flower shop that's in the downtown. The barber shop that's in the downtown. The tailor shop that's in the downtown. There's all of the upstairs offices in the downtown are 100% occupied in the village-owned buildings. Most people don't even realize that. You know, so we are bringing businesses into the downtown, and we're following a plan in bringing those businesses into the downtown. We're looking very carefully at what kinds of places can enhance the overall community and at the same time be supported by the purchasing activity that takes place in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Ostenburg. Mr. Brown, any rebuttal?
Yes, once again, we love Park Forest. And if anyone went to the industrial area, it looked almost similar to the downtown area. It's abandoned. You know, you have buildings that are tore down. You don't understand that the buildings are tore down. The building that they're talking about with the Richard Dent, that's closed. The building next to that is closed. The building next to that is closed. And across the street from that, you have everything. It's just open field. So like I said, the businesses that they have that's downtown, they're doing nothing at all for our property taxes. If they were, I wouldn't be paying $7,200 in property taxes. And the last thing that I want to leave, when you keep saying what I don't know about Park Forest, a simple question was asked about diversity as far as the department heads here, and you had a whole table full of trustees that couldn't give a real answer. Two didn't know, and one basically danced around the question. You have one person that I can think of off the top of my head that brings diversity to the department heads, and that's the person over the health department. Now, what about everything else? Put it out on the table. Let's talk for it.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Ostenburg, any rebuttal?
Yes, thank you. Let me address the last one first. The head of the health department is an African-American female. The supervisor of nursing, who was just hired, is an African-American female. The director of public relations is an African-American male. The director of community relations is an African-American female. The deputy police chief, as was mentioned previously, was an African-American male who took a position in another community as chief of police. The senior fire captain, in fact, the individual who was in charge when we had the explosion over on Bailey Street, is an African-American. So we have promoted diversity. Plus, when I got on the board in 1997 as a trustee, there were 7 white males. I made a commitment that if I ever had the chance to broaden the diversity of that board, I would do so. I've appointed 3 women to vacancies, 2 of whom are African Americans. We are making steps to promote diversity so that it reflects our community. And that's a commitment that I have made. It was one of my goals initially. Look at our boards and commissions. Well, many of them were all white when I came to power. That's not the case now. Chairman and vice chairman are men and women, African Americans and white, young and old. There is diversity throughout all of our boards and commissions.
Once again, he went outside of what the head of a department is, just like his trustees did when they was naming. It was 2 African-American police that was put on the force. Those are not heads of the department. And the reason why it's so important, why you all are clapping, the reason why it's so important, this is supposed to be a diverse community. But when his literature come out and he keep talking about, he appointed African Americans to be a commissioner, which is a non-paying position. He appointed the first African-American village clerk who I don't think lived here or haven't worked here in I don't know how long. Why is it important now to talk about African-Americans? What, you don't like white Americans now? Why you're not talking about what you do for them? It's the only reason why now we're talking about African Americans is because an African American is running for this office. Because in the last election, African Americans wasn't mentioned.
Mr. Ostenburg, any rebuttal?
Well, I would just, thank you. I would just, those of you who have been around for a while probably remember a former village trustee by the name of Bob Furness, who was a very, very close personal friend of mine. Bob passed away a few years ago. I remember when I got back on the board, that one of the things that Bob said to me was, John, when I come into Village Hall, I don't see people at the counters who look like me. And I made a commitment to him and to the community that I publicly stated that we would change that, and it is changed today. We do have African Americans throughout the ranks of the village. Now, are we 100% where we should be? Absolutely not. Because you don't fire people who are doing a good job. But as vacancies come up, all you got to do is look at the last 4 senior appointments in the village. They've all gone to African Americans. But there have been vacancies that have come up because someone has retired or moved on to another position. That's the way you promote diversity. You don't fire people. You simply take the positions as they come open, and you make sure that you broaden the spectrum as much as possible in your recruitment activity. The Police and Fire Commission is doing that. The village manager is doing that. And we've tried to do it on the village board.
Thank you. We'll move now to the next question. This is a question for both candidates. Who are your favorite state legislators and why? We'll start first with Mr. Brown.
I would probably say Connie Howard. I worked with her, I talked with her on several different accounts. She's been a part of she was a part of one huge thing is when a lot of guys were let go from prison for crimes that they didn't commit. She sat on that board, I believe, with Monique Davis, and I can't remember the other people right off the top of my head. But she's an outstanding state representative. She's always have an open door policy. She sits on a few boards as far as the youth is concerned, and projects for our senior citizens are concerned, which basically my heart is the youth and the senior citizens. Outside of her, I worked with Emil Jones on his, before his retirement, and who else would I say off the top of my head? That's really about it that I can think of right now off the top of my head. But I don't know what that has to do with Park Forest.
Thank you. Mr. Ostenburg?
Well, I have a high level of admiration for a couple of legislators who are from the South Suburban region, who actually represent our area. I think Representative Al Riley is really, I don't agree with Al on 100% of stuff, but I have to tell you, I don't know many legislators who are as conscientious in examining situations, getting back to their constituents, and being as totally involved in the process as Al is. You talk to him about legislation, he knows the specific pieces. He's read it, whether he's introduced it or not, he can always give you an answer. Will Davis, Representative Will Davis from a district just a little bit north of us, also an outstanding legislator, very good for our region. He approaches things, obviously he's concerned about his district and his constituents in his district, but he's also concerned about the entire region. And he really will fan out. He will come to events that we have here in Park Forest, even though we're not in his district, because he recognizes the importance of helping the entire area. On the Senate side, I think we are so fortunate to have Toy Hutchinson as our state senator. I mean, this is a woman that I have worked with and seen grow to the point of where every time I hear her, she was just the MC for Robin Kelly's breakfast last week, the Delicate Balanced Breakfast. Every time I see Toy in action, she just excels beyond all expectation. We are also very well served by Senator Maggie Crotty in our region, and Maggie has been very helpful to us. She was the one who helped us when we needed to get the low interest loan that saved our taxpayers between $4 and $5 million on interest for building the new water plant. So we have some really outstanding local legislators, and they're people that I admire because of the way they're willing to work with local elected officials to advance our region.
Mr. Brown, any rebuttal?
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to our next question. Next question is for both candidates. Regarding property taxes, Park Forest government doesn't seem to contain much fact. Where, in your opinion, could cuts be made that will allow Park Forest to retain basic services and still allow for possible emergency situations? Would you pressure Cook and Will counties to reduce their much larger portion of property taxes? Isn't that where the real waste is? I've been here since 1963 and can't remember any scandals regarding Park Forest government, but waste and corruption by county and state entities makes headlines every day. We'll start first with Mr. Ostenburg.
Well, I think what we have to do is continue to examine programs, and in places where the program is not being effective, we need to make decisions to cut them. And that's a very, very difficult thing to do. A few years ago, we looked at the health department with that potential. We decided ultimately to rearrange the health department, and we didn't have to cut it so that we could continue to provide services, especially to our seniors and the people who don't have health insurance and things of that sort. But when we looked at the golf course, there was no way that, I mean, there were a lot of people who loved that golf course, and it was painful to have to make that decision that we had to close that. But it was like opening a hole and throwing $40,000 a year right down it. We were losing money on the golf course. We had to make the decision. There are a lot of golf courses in our area, so we made the decision it had to be cut. That helped us save taxes. The Marshall Field building, you know, nostalgically, we all love the Marshall Field building. We remember it, and we remember eating in the dining room, all of those things people tell stories about. But the fact is, we were maintaining that building, trying to get a tenant. Nobody was interested because of when it was constructed. Just trying to retrofit it, you know, in order to use it for a contemporary business was not feasible. So we had to tear it down. We got a grant to cover the cost of tearing it down, but we're saving the taxpayers about $40,000 a year in maintenance fees on that building. So you can cut in places where you can see that the services are not vital and that, you know, there's tough decisions that have to be made. I think when it comes to staffing, we are just about as tight as you can be. And I would not recommend that we cut any staff. And if we start talking about adding staff, that's even more problematic because, you know, we have one policeman. We're talking about $100,000 in costs with salary and benefits. That's roughly 1% increase in the Park Forest tax levy. So you got to be very careful about what you add. You got to balance what's in place right now, trying to save in those places where you think perhaps the service is no longer vital.
Thank you, Mr. Ostenburg. Mr. Brown?
Could you repeat part of the question?
Part of the question. Well, when I read the question again, regarding property taxes, Park Forest government doesn't seem to contain much fact. Where, in your opinion, could cuts be made that will allow Park Forest to retain basic services and still allow for possible emergency situations? Would you pressure Cook and Will counties to reduce their much larger portion of property taxes? Isn't that where the real waste is? I've been here since 1963 and I can't remember any scandals regarding Park Forest government, but waste and corruption by county and state entities makes headlines every day.
I don't know of any services that we can cut because we don't offer that many. But on top of that, I would look for new monies to bring new blood into the community. Basically, the golf course is one. The golf course was promised to a lot of people to do a lot of things, even the people that live in that area. Some people thought they was buying property that would sit on the golf course, but they was fooled. So I would look at reopening that. I wouldn't focus on, my first initiative, should I say, wouldn't be to focus on the county taxes, because we can't control that. We can control the village taxes. That's where my first thought would go, is to how to alleviate the pain of the taxes that we can control. How can we get a handle on that? And once again, that's just bringing in new businesses. And like we said, bring up the golf course. We have a thriving golf course that's in another suburb that's directly across the street. I don't know why the development part of Park Forest cannot work as hard as other communities. If University Park have a golf course that is up and thriving, why couldn't we have it? And if I understand correctly, we had first bid tips on the University Park golf course, but we let that slip through our hands, and University Park took over. So the one that we had basically fell down. So basically, just getting back to the bolts of it, we got to get businesses in Park Forest. We do need to add to our police department. And I've said that before. I think that's what John mentioned, saying you have one extra person with it will cost. Whatever it would take to do this safety of this village, that's what I would be interested in. So do we need to find new monies? 100%. Cutting programs? No. You do not have to cut programs. You do not have to cut programs to cut taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Ostenburg, any?
Sure. First of all, in terms of getting outside money, I don't know how much more money, outside money we can get than what we've gotten. Most of the communities around us envious for getting $30 million in outside funding over a 6-year, 7-year period. So we are getting outside dollars. The golf course, one of the reasons that our golf course was not successful compared to the golf course across the street was because we didn't have a clubhouse. A clubhouse is what you need in order to get the golf outings and things of that sort to help the business succeed. We looked at that possibility. It was a very costly venture to build a clubhouse there and to do that. We did consider purchasing the old Urban Hills golf course, which is now University Park Golf Center, but University Park outbid us. I mean, they came in with, I think it was about $1 million more than we could afford to spend. So you don't spend money that you don't have. And we weren't going to go into debt over it, either to build the clubhouse or to buy a piece of property that would have been speculation, to be perfectly honest. So that was the reason we made the decision to close the golf course and to try to market that property, which I think will happen when the economy changes.
Mr. Brown, any rebuttal?
Yes, he just admitted again, he's contradicting himself again. What more money can we ask for? If you stop asking for money, something is wrong. We shouldn't leave any money on the table. And if we received all of this money that he's referring to, you couldn't build a clubhouse. So it's either here or there. Are you getting the money or are you not getting the money? If you're getting the money, what are you doing with it? The streets have potholes throughout the whole entire village. The main street, the side street. Once again, the downtown area is vacant. We don't have any incentives to bring businesses in. And once again, the golf course, perfectly fine place where people could come and play golf. It's a proven fact because you have one that's in existence already. But you say that we was outbidded by $1 million, but you just said 2 seconds ago, we can't ask for any more money because we're getting all the money we can receive. So it's just a contradiction. I don't get it. But I've had to do it for only 3 years, so maybe I'm slow. I don't know.
Yes, I would like to have a minor rebuttal there. When you get grants, those grants are restricted to certain areas. You look at the federal government and what the federal government offers in terms of grants. There are very careful specifications that have to be met. The funds then have to be used for specific kinds of things. I don't think that the federal government would have given us $1 million to build a clubhouse on the golf course. They will give us money for road repairs. Orchard, for example, is under schedule to be repaired next year. The engineering is being done now. Spring of 2012, the construction will begin. That project is 90% funded by grant monies. We need $1.5 million additional to finish the complete project to be 100% funded by grants. That's why I was in Washington. But I got to tell you, it is much tighter and much harder to get grant monies now than it was. Many of the grants that you get, you have to put up matching dollars in order to get the grant. You may get $4,000, but you have to put up $2,000 of local money in order to get that. And that's a very difficult thing to do when you're working on a tight budget.
We'll move to our next question, which is a question for both candidates. In 2007, mayoral elect diversity was not a huge issue with the mayor or the board of trustees. Why is it now? We'll start with Mr. Brown.
With all due respect, it wasn't a black candidate or African American candidate that was involved in the election. And I think it's sad for people who are not realizing that it's taken us 60 years backwards. I'm sorry, it's taken us 60 years backwards. for people not to open their eyes. In the literature that they've had with his colleague newspaper that used the name Park Forest in it, it stipulates African Americans are being transported. Start off the conversation. African Americans are being transported to Park Forest in limousine and buses, and then smear my name saying I'm the person who's doing it. First of all, I don't have that type of money. And then second of all, in the same article, he's offering rides. Not once, but twice. In no literature that I've passed out have I offered anyone a ride. And it's easily found out that the rides were coming from Chicago Heights. And on top of that, when I was trying to do my right and vote, I was harassed by a person, once again, that owns this newspaper. And if you all can't see that it's a problem with that, then maybe we should be in a situation that we're in. At some time, we have to make some changes in our life. But when you're being harassed where you go to vote, and you're bringing up negative energy as far as who's African American and being brought in to a village, shame on everybody. Shame on me for even having this conversation. It's 2011, and we're going back to 1958. Like I have no business to run for Park Forest village president. Can we move on? This is a question that I ask the voters in this room. Can we move on, or should we move back?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Ostenburg?
Thank you, Judge. Actually, I think diversity has been something that's been talked about in this community in virtually every election and every year since I've been here, and I've been here for 33 years. Ron Bean, when he was appointed to the board actually made a concerted effort to find an African American to appoint to that vacancy, which they did. And then he subsequently was elected mayor of this town. We are very proud of our diversity, but there have been times when our diversity has slipped. There's no question about that. And am I proud of the fact that I've made an effort as mayor to try to broaden that representation? You're doggone right I am. That's why Diversity Inc. gave me the Diversity Award in 2009, because I have been working. I do not believe in any kind of discriminate treatment of individuals based upon race, based upon creed, based upon sexual orientation, based upon gender, or anything of the sort. We need to work on all of these things. And we have, in fact, been a bright light in the South Suburbs, not just because it hasn't just happened. It was an effort that people put into making sure that the representation was broad. And, at those times when we have slipped in the past, we've got to make efforts then to do something to bring it around. And I think it's always been an issue in our community, and it should be an issue in our community.
Mr. Brown, any rebuttal?
Once again, going back in history, you can be rude all you want, but the facts are this. The question was about 2007 election. He went back to Ron Bean, and I think he was the mayor here in like 1978. So let's stick with the facts of 2007, not the 70s, not the 80s. It's 2007 the question was referred to. When I showed Mr. Ostenburg the negative things that they was putting in on me, he told me to get tough skin. Then he told me that I said things that I didn't say. I said, you can never say I said anything negative, even the people that work for me. He told me, somebody told him that I said that he said, when my daughter gave me that type of language, her phone get taken away from her. Okay, and she haven't did that since she was in 8th grade. And she's in a second year of high school now. Once again, JeRome haven't did any negative publicity, but my signs are being stolen throughout Park Forest.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Ostenburg, any rebuttal?
Frankly, I'm not quite sure what to say. I don't remember ever telling you that you need to have tough skin. I don't remember that at all. The fact is, there are people who say that they have heard things from, people say that they've heard things from my campaign too, that I haven't had anything to do with. You're waving a newspaper around, I don't have anything to do with that newspaper article, and creating the impression that I'm guilty by association because I happen to know the person who owns it. These kind of association things, All you gotta do is listen to what's been said today in this debate. Every time I've answered a question, I have given you facts, details, specifics. I haven't given you generalities, nothing of the sort. I have given you facts, specifics, and details every single time. You know, and by contrast, what we're hearing are these kinds of sweeping generalities and statements that somebody is saying something about somebody who said something. You know, let's get back to the facts and the details.
And the issues.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please hold your questions. Please, no talking. The next question, while it does not indicate that it's directed to Mr. Ostenburg, the gist of the question seems to be that it is directed to Mr. Ostenburg. I read now the question. After being village president of Park Forest for 12 years, everything has declined. No shopping malls, no grocery stores, high water bills, and extremely high level of foreclosed homes. What is it that you plan on doing to change this for the better that you have not done in your previous terms in office? Mr. Ostenburg.
Thank you, Judge. First of all, that question is just off base. You know, the fact of the matter is, when I came to office, the Norwood Square Shopping Center was $5 million in arrears on taxes, plus penalties. We got that turned around, and we got that put back on the tax rolls. We have a developer who owns the property right now. Now, because of the economic downturn, he has not been able to do anything with that property. But there's a tax-paying owner of that property versus a non-tax-paying entity that was building up penalties and past-due taxes. The water plant, when I came to office, the water plant was in need of replacement. The IEPA cited the village for that. We had to build a new water plant. We built a new water plant using funds from the IEPA that saved the taxpayers $4 million, between $4 and $5 million in interest. Plus, you all know, as I do, and it's become an issue in this campaign, we got problems with our water lines. We have had problems with our water lines for a number of years because they're 60 years old, and we have a highly erosive soil base, and we're putting in new water lines. Those have to be paid for. Yes, water rates have gone up to pay for that. There's no two ways around it. We also, though, have applied some federal grants to pay for some of those water lines. There's been CDBG money that's paid for some of those water lines, which keeps those additional costs from being passed on to the taxpayers. You know, so there are a number of things that have happened that are improvements, and we're going to move forward and continue those kinds of improvements.
Mr. Brown, you may respond if you wish.
Once again, I've dealt with facts every time I come up here, all four forums. The only thing that the administration, the village president have talked about is things in the far future what will happen, or things that had happened. And that's proof. We don't have to go back and forth. We can just look at the tape. Roll the tape. It's as simple as that. He talked about there was a grant for the Marshall Field building, yeah, but it didn't take care of the whole entire project. So where did the rest of that money come from? We have the same situations time and time again with this water situation. Here's the water situation. We have the best water in the state of Illinois. We won an award for having the best quality water. That's what John said, and that's what the Board of Trustees has said. It was not for the best quality water, it was for the best tasting water, which is a huge difference. And they told me, they booed me when I first talked about the water that was here, that it was not water of good standing. Now we have water line problems. But here's a water that we put in from our home, and on March 22nd. This is the great water that we have. Now, here's the water that I was given today, because they said we don't need to buy water. So I want to see all the people that saying boo and ah, come taste this water and tell me, let's do a taste test now. Oh, nobody's getting up. I don't hear JeRome getting booed now. And like I say, I have been working in this community since I got here. Just like no banners was up about the good that the Rich East High School was doing. Until I said something, now banners are up because the village wouldn't allow the schools to put it up. Now they are talking about water. My time is up, but I'll finish.
Mr. Ostenburg, any rebuttal?
Well, I want to just say real quickly, the water quality is excellent and the taste is excellent. Both of them by independent tasters. The delivery system has problems in it. We have said that all along. That's why we're putting in all new water pipes, because delivering that water from the water plant. And in some neighborhoods, it's worse than other neighborhoods. That's absolutely true. There's some people who don't have any problem whatsoever, depending upon where they're living. Other people who have dark water or discolored water that can affect their clothes or whatever. Now, I know the village manager has reached out to Mr. Brown since the first time that he said that he had discolored water and offered to send village water department staff to his home to test that water and see if there's a problem there. Because I told the village manager to do it. And he in fact did contact Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown said he'll be in touch with him sometime in the future to have that test done. If there's a home in town where there's problems with the water, we'll look into it. But it's the delivery system that is the problem, not the content of the water. And that's why we're replacing the water pipes in town, so we can deliver the pure water without discoloration and things of that sort.
Thank you, Mr. Ostenburg. Mr. Brown, any rebuttal?
Once again, the fatigue is just making up things. The village manager never offered. You should ask security to remove this guy. But the village manager never asked to come to my house and test water. He actually did go down to the water plant to see how it was. I have it right here in my email. We haven't talked verbally. We contact each other by emails. And it's proof that this email will show you that he's never asked to come and test the water at my house. It was for me to come to the water department. And I mean, we can find that out clearly right now if we want to take a pause and pull up my emails. The simple as that.
Thank you. We'll move now, ladies and gentlemen, to the next question. Ladies and gentlemen, please, no outbursts during this session, please. Thank you. The question: you described the diversity of the staff. I thought hiring staff was the responsibility of the village manager, not the trustees. I'm assuming that that's a question for both candidates, so we'll start with Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown?
Everything falls on, it's on his account. Everything falls on the mayor. If it's on his watch, he's responsible. He appointed the village mayor, who in return hired the person who's over human resources, who in return hired the people for the village. So the buck stops at him. If it's something happened, just like the explosion that happened in the co-ops, once again, it happened on his watch. So he's the person who have to come in and make up something like, oh, it's not our fault, and this is what happened. Anything that happened in the village, the buck stopped at the expense of the village president. That's the burden of being village president. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. As simple as that. But this is what I want people to know, is that once again, in another one of his articles, this wasn't the newspaper, this was actually a statement, the 10 reasons why not to vote for me that he co-signed. But one thing I do like what he wrote was this piece right here. In the background, they have "We the People." And we the people are some real strong words. We the people are you and me. Those are words that represent everybody in this room. Why we keep trying to divide everybody, because I'm trying to run for office to do something better for my child, my 2 kids and my wife, my next door neighbors and the people in this village. We the people is what's called the preamble, which is the introduction to the Constitution that deal with taxation without representation, to give us the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So when we start trying to do something as a positive, it only shows ignorance when a person come here to represent something in a positive nature, not in the negative. I don't have a gun in my hand or a mask over my head, but I do have my family here. For genuine voters or concerned citizens to come here to a meeting and make sounds in front of this whole room, it's beyond me.
Time's up, Mr. Brown. Thank you. Mr. Ostenburg.
Judge, could you repeat the question?
Sure. You described diversity of the staff. I thought hiring staff was the responsibility of the village manager, not the trustees.
Yes, thank you. Actually, the carrying out of the policies of the village is the responsibility of the village manager. The board hires the manager, the board holds the manager accountable. What the board does, however, is set goals for each budget year, and then, of course, the board has to approve the budget. But those goals are then directed to the staff, and the staff is given the responsibility to carry those out. And the village board gets very deeply involved in directing the manager in terms of how he's supposed to carry out those goals. And that includes things like diverse hiring, community involvement. I mean, the village manager, for example, sets up the neighborhood meetings. Where did the idea for the neighborhood meetings originate? With the board. And when we have our annual goals sent out to the community that people can respond to and give us ideas, we then have focus groups that we bring in who give us further ideas, and those groups are representative of the entire community. And then out of that, we have an all-day Saturday session that the community is invited to come to, and we set the goals. Those goals are given to the manager. The manager then has the responsibility of carrying them out. So in that sense, no, we do not do the direct hiring, but the manager works to fulfill our goals, or he or she, when we had a female manager, will be held accountable to the board for not having fulfilled those goals. That's the way the system works.
Mr. Brown, and everybody.
Once again, I would cheer everyone on and look forward to going on the internet and just look at the board meetings and just see how diverse the head of the departments are. Just watch it. Don't take JeRome's word for it. Just pull up Park Forest and look at one of the board meetings where all the department heads are there and see how diverse it is. Like I say, the buck stop with the village president. I'm not pointing fingers anywhere. If I'm in that position, the finger could be pointing here and I'll deal with it. But there's no way in the world that I would come here and try to hire all African American people to run a village. It's time out for the nonsense. We have to represent this village as a people. As a people. And that's of all race, creed, and color. And this is what I want to bring. I want to motivate people in Park Forest, just as I did with the petitions. I've seen over 1,600 people. I got to have a feeling for something.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Time is up. Mr. Ostenburg, any rebuttal?
Well, I would just say that, I seem to be condemned because I do make appointments of members of minority groups to positions, and I'm being condemned because the board isn't doing enough to get people in. I mean, it can't be both ways. I believe in this village that we have a plan to broaden our representation both among the officials of the village where vacancies occur and with hiring on the basis of how vacancies occur. I mean, and I think I think that the village manager's system for how he advertises will clearly lay that out. One of the things that I did when I became mayor was I changed some of the people who were on the board of police and fire commissioners. I didn't do it because I didn't like the people who were on there before, but because I wanted broader representation because they approved the hiring of our policemen and our firemen. We have 3 people on that board, including 2 females, who have backgrounds. All 3 of those people have backgrounds in personnel work. And as a result, they understand the process. And they've done a very good job of making sure that our hires are balanced.
Thank you, Mr. Ostenburg. We'll move now, ladies and gentlemen, to the next question, which is a question for both candidates. Will you sponsor a property tax summit in our town with homeowners, co-op owners, business owners, Cook County and state tax assessment officials to give us numbers, explanations, and solutions for our high property tax? We'll start first with Mr. Ostenburg.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we've had a number of these kinds of meetings in the past. We had one breakfast meeting where we had virtually every one of our state legislators, the Cook County Assessor, representatives of the Cook County Board, and we did talk about this comprehensively. We've had a series of programs at Freedom Hall where the Cook County Assessor, the Will County Assessor has been there and has talked about the situation. We've had specific programs, one at Dining on the Green and then just another one recently at Freedom Hall where representatives of the Cook County Board of Tax Appeals comes and explains to people how they can make appeals on their taxation. Cook County has some very unique problems. There's a difference between Cook and Will in terms of how taxes are calculated. In Cook County, businesses pay basically twice as much as homeowners do. Now what that means is that if you have a tax base like ours, where you have school districts and the village and everybody else that's part of paying that taxes, if you don't have businesses, in fact, the homeowners are picking up a bigger burden. That's a critical part of our problem. The best solution to that, and the one that everyone statewide has always said is the best solution, is to change the way we fund schools. If we were to change the way we fund schools, we would alleviate a great amount of that problem. Now, one thing that we have to keep in mind is that property taxes are based on assessed value. So if you have a home that's assessed at $100,000, you're going to pay more than somebody that's assessed at $40,000. You're going to pay more than somebody who's got a co-op that's assessed at $6,000. That's just the way it is. The assessments are no different than what you pay in income taxes. You make $200,000, you're going to pay more than the guy who makes $40,000. That's the way the system is. Now, the biggest way to correct that problem is to change the way we fund schools. That will do it, and everybody knows that it will do it. But it's a hot political issue that some of our legislators have not been willing to tackle.
Thank you, Mr. Ostenburg. Mr. Brown?
Changing the way we fund schools is not going to change, at least not in the near future. Maybe when Dash grow up and be a man, maybe it'll change at that time. So once again, we have to deal with what we can handle, what we can change. And that's with village taxes being first and foremost. The county taxes are the same. The county taxes are lower than the village taxes. So by far the first thing that I will consider is dealing with the village taxes by bringing businesses in Park Forest. You have a number of villages that are around us. They pay school taxes just as we do. But we have the highest, speaking of Cook County, we have the highest taxes in Rich Township. We're not one of the highest, we have the highest taxes in Rich Township. We have communities that circle around Rich Township that pay the same taxes we do as far as schools and county taxes, but we still are higher than them. And this, I would have to go into great details, but I have information that for the last 10 years, the numbers that the village have put out, as far as taxes are concerned, are not true, period. I'll be having a seminar on Salt Trail and Cicero Wednesday at 7 o'clock. So instead of being a naysayer, come and join us and then learn something. And you'll see that the numbers that we're being told why we're going up, what we're actually going up, and what we're actually paying, we'll bring all that to light. I have copies here in this folder. After the end of this meeting, anyone interested in getting a copy of it, we'll give it to you. And then let's get together on Wednesday as a village and let's discuss it like people who want to solve a problem.
Thank you. Mr. Ostenburg, and then we go.
Well, I would say first of all that all of our figures are audited by independent auditors. They've held up to scrutiny every year. The village has won awards for the way it budgets and its audits always have shown that, you know, our figures are accurate. So I don't know what this discrepancy might be or how it's being portrayed. Secondly, though, you know, the thing is we do need to continue to work to try to bring that tax base down as much as we possibly can. It's very difficult, though. In Rich Township, School District 163, every referendum that has come before the voters over the years has passed, except for one that related to busing. Every referendum passed. The voters in the community established that tax rate. It wasn't the village, it wasn't even the school board. It was the voters in District 163, which none of the other communities in Rich Township are in District 163. It's only Park Forest. In Bloom Township, you have some of Chicago Heights, but we don't have the highest tax rate in Bloom Township. So, the fact of the matter is, when you have citizens voting to increase the way they fund their schools, of course the taxes are going to go up. And that's exactly what happened over several years, because Park Foresters always were concerned with good quality schools and paying for good quality schools. Now, over the years, because of the number of other complexities that have come in, that tax base has kind of gotten out of kilter. And I will never say that it's impossible to change the way we fund schools. 30-some states in the United States have made that change. The state of Michigan did a complete vacating of all their taxes and completely wrote a new tax code in order to make those kinds of changes. It is doable. And it can't, in Illinois, for example, in 1969, when we had the Illinois Constitutional Convention, there were changes made in terms of funding of schools. They changed one word, where in the past it said that the state was required to pay the majority of the funding for schools. It said preponderance. And as a result of that little change, the state now can pay the greatest amount of all those people who are paying overall statewide, but it doesn't have to pay the majority because of a change of one word.
Thank you, Mr. Ostenburg. Mr. Brown, and everybody.
Let's talk about the taxes that we did go up on as the village, instead of dealing with the schools and the counties. And then I think we went back to 1960. Well, let's go back a little further than that. In 1976, we had Thomas Paine that wrote a pamphlet called Common Sense. And it simply says, if your government is not giving you your basic rights, you should pick another one. And that's where we at this point. That's where we're at this point right now. It's time to get common sense and get another government in Park Forest. For the simple fact, we keep passing the buck. He talked about some other things he brought up 10 years, 20 years ago, but we just went up 3% on our taxes. We're not talking about how we can alleviate that situation. We're talking about other things, other people, and other decades ago. When will we stay in this year and deal with the facts?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
1 minute?
Yes, Mr. Ostenburg, 1 minute.
Thank you, Judge. I want to just say this about the 3% increase that the village put on the 30% of the taxes that we have. And as I say, that's less than 1% of the overall increase in the taxes. It's 0.9%, 0.91%. How much has your automobile gasoline gone up in the past year? It's gone up more than 3%. And we have to fill every vehicle that goes out into the village with gasoline. The state of Illinois requires that we spend roughly 20% of our budget on pensions for police and fire. So whatever that increase was, 20% of that increase goes just to fund the pension and fire mandates that the state passes on to us. Then we have all other kinds of inflationary increases. When you have those kinds of circumstances, one of the things that's been said in the past was, well, you gave the staff 3% raises. Well, first of all, we didn't give the staff 3% raises. We gave a 1.5% raise to some administrators and 2% to some staff people. That came from not filling some positions. They assumed more responsibility. We spread the money around and paid them a little more for that. So,
thank you, Mr. Ostenburg.
Thank you.
Time's up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will say that many questions have been submitted. However, due to time constraints, we will not have time to go and ask, we will not have time to ask and go through all of the questions. However, I am going to take the liberty and push the limit, and I'm going to ask one additional question. This is a question for both candidates. What ideas do you have to assure that proper due diligence is done to protect the public from repeated underutilization and unrealistic projections for the success of new projects? We'll start with Mr. Brown.
Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. Just request to repeat the question. What ideas do you have to assure that proper due diligence is done to protect the public from repeated underutilization and unrealistic projections for the success of new projects?
Number one, I'm not the person that's in place to put us in this situation for the underdevelopment. The ideas that I have is not, they are realistic by far. And it's simply bringing in business. And we're the whole entire South Land, as far as I'm concerned, is developing except Park Forest. We got University Park, that Clorox, and Light System that was put in. We got Chicago Heights that just had a third mega grocery store that was put in, which is Food for Less. And Masson has continued to grow with Walmarts and things of that nature. Park Forest is the only one that is not putting anything on the block that the other villages could look and say, hey, we're growing. We're talking about shops that have 1 or 2 employees, which is not doing anything for our taxes. Like I say, realistically, can we make this village work? The answer is yes. Where is Park Forest now? I don't think it is dead, but I think it's headed in that direction. And I think with some people who are definitely interested, just like one of the trustee members up here spoke earlier, that the programs that they have with the kids that they deal with college adults to deal with those kids because it's a better relation. But the average age in Park Forest is, I think, between 36 and 44, if I can remember a demo on it, which I'm 44 years old. So I think that I have more in common with the vast majority of Park Forest, and growth potential is there. I think that we could get this village to move as a whole, not as property owners versus the co-ops, as all of this literature that has been placed, not turning this into an African American versus anybody or minorities. I think that we could get together and move this village as a whole, not as a division.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Ostenburg?
Well, I'm presuming that the question relates to village projects right now that are underway that are not being fully utilized. Like we talked about the golf course. I'm presuming that's what the questioner has in mind. We do a review regularly as part of our budget process of the various amenities that we have in the village and how well they're being utilized. There have been some times in the past, for example, where we've given some very serious consideration to the Aqua Center and whether the Aqua Center needs to continue because the utilization has been down at different times. The Racquet Club is the same way. I mentioned before the health department. We did a comprehensive review a few years ago. We do these reviews and then we make a decision based upon what we think is in the best interest of the community. Part of that decision is based on, is there something similar that's close by that people can make use of if we had to close the village one? For example, the golf course. Yes, there are other golf courses in our area. So our residents could still have the amenity of a golf course by us closing that one down and saving money. The Aqua Center, that's a little more problematic. In terms of a cost-effective swimming facility in the south suburbs, there's not many in our immediate area that people could take advantage of. Same thing is true with the Racquet Club. So we kind of make those decisions based upon a lot of different details that come in. And there is citizen involvement in that. I mentioned, for example, when we do our goal setting, we ask for citizen input through surveys, through the focus groups, and when we go out into the community for neighborhood meetings, we do the same thing. So, it is not an easy task to review utilization and to make a decision that you might have to close some program that people have come to depend on, but we try to do it in as fair and equitable way as possible across the board. And that's why we've made some decisions to close and some decisions to keep open.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, any rebuttal?
No.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to the remaining questions. At this time, we're going to move to closing statements and give each candidate an opportunity to present a 2-minute closing statement. Starting first with Mr. Brown.
I want to thank you all again for coming out and giving me the opportunity to present myself. My heart is in this position. I'm here for no other reason but to represent everyone in this room and within the limits of Park Forest to represent you as part of the village president of Park Forest. That's where my heart is. My family is supporting me behind this. I've met tons of new friends. Once again, when I went out to get petitions, I got them from the co-op, I got them from the property owners, I got them from black people, I got them from white people, because I see no color. And for people to bring anything like that into this contest that we're in, I think it's setting us behind 60 years, if not more. Taxation without representation is what the Declaration of Independence was all about. I say the revolution that will fought thousands of people died. I say it's time for the second revolution, except not with violence and guns and knives, but just with pressure. Pressure and more pressure until our government give us what we want, our local government. There's time out for bad behavior. Right now, the behavior that's going on in Park Forest is as if it's a normal behavior. But we'll want to arrest a kid on the street for it. I have signs across the street that's been snatched up. My crew that work with me and myself, we don't do that type of thing. But of course it's being accepted. It's not the first time, it's not the second time, I'm quite sure it won't be the last time. All we want to do is represent this community in the best way we know how. I have a 16-month, so I have interest in daycare. I have a high school student. I have interest in education, period. I have interest in the youth, period. I have interest in the seniors because of family members. And I just have business for business people because that's who I am.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Time is up. Mr. Ostenburg?
Thank you, Judge, and thank you for being here this afternoon and giving us your attention and your good questions. I always enjoy the question part because it kind of brings up ideas and notions sometimes that we don't think of otherwise, and they do lead to implementation of new public policy in many cases. So I want to thank you for that. Over the course of the time that I've been in office in Park Forest, I've had a handful of goals that have included trying to get our taxes under control as best as possible by bringing in outside money whenever that was feasible, by trying to make improvements where, in terms of our housing stock, the multifamily stock, the single-family stock, addressing issues of property deterioration like we had to do with Norwood Square when it was in arrears and all of the problems incumbent with that. These are all things that I think are very important to the well-being of our community. And in that process, diversity also is an important part of our community, and we can't forget it because we set as our standard that we were going to be a diverse community. Other communities didn't necessarily do that, but we did. We adopted it as a standard. So we do have to have watchdogs to look out to make sure that there's representation across the board that reflects our community. I tried to do that. I tried to do that in appointments that I've made. I've tried to do that in the goals that we've set for the staff. And I think that we've carried through on those in many ways. We have a lot further to go, and we will go a lot further. And as positions open up, we will make sure that the representation, the hiring, is as balanced as possible. That is what's been happening. That will continue to happen so that we have a workforce that is truly representative of our community. I think I've served you well over the course of the last 12 years. I want to continue that for 4 more years. This is our last public forum. Election is not too many days away. I humbly ask you to continue your support for me. This community has been good to me and my family, and I want to be good in return. Thank you.
Let me say Tuesday, April 5th is Election Day. Please vote. Please vote for the candidate or candidates of your choice. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give yourselves a round of applause.